As you can probably tell from the title of this video, this is a Chris Watts hate video.
Lily, honey, we don't hate.
No, I hate this man, and once you hear what he did, you will too. What did he do? He killed his pregnant wife and 2 young daughters, all for some woman he met 6 weeks before. 6 weeks was all it took for him to just completely discard his family in the most disgusting way. What the fuck? Yeah, what the fuck? And that's just the basics. It gets worse the more you learn about the case, but today isn't a deep dive. Today is a Chris Watts hate video. I think we got it. I'm also going to be hating on the hybristophiliacs. A hybristophiliac is someone who has a romantic delusion, essentially, towards criminals, killers, things like that. They like criminals and killers. They're freaks. And I'm going to be hating on them too because they have the audacity to idolize this man after everything he's done, and they're honestly equally as fucked up and disturbed. So it's going to be one of those videos. Oh, it's going to be one of those videos. Let's go. Fuck Chris Watts, bro. I really cannot say that enough. Like, should we get a counter on screen, like, at this point? So here's a quick overview of the case if you're completely unfamiliar with who this piece of shit is. Chris Watts and Shanann Watts met on Facebook in 2010 after Chris sent a friend request. Shanann initially ignored it, but accepted it 2 months later while dealing with a lupus diagnosis. After chatting online, they began dating, married in 2012, and moved to Colorado. After 8 years together and 2 kids with a third on the way, Shanann described Chris as the best thing that ever happened to her. This is gonna get sad, isn't it? Horribly. On August 13th, 2018, Shanann returned home from a business trip in Arizona at about 2 a.m. and the Ring doorbell on their house actually captured her walking into the house, and this was the last time Shanann was seen alive. She had been driven home by her friend and coworker Nicole Atkinson, and later that day, Shanann and the girls were reported missing by Atkinson, the friend, who became worried when Shanann didn't respond to her text messages and missed an important prenatal appointment. Remember guys, she was pregnant. Atkinson went to the house and knocked on the door but received no response. Now, Nicole Atkinson is honestly like one of the MVPs of this story. And like I said, this isn't gonna be a deep dive, but I just wanted to point out, like, have a friend like Nicole, because the same day that all of this took place, her friend knew something was wrong, knew something was up, was already suspicious, already had the cops at the house before Chris could do fucking anything, okay? She knew her friend, and she knew that something was not right, and she did something about it. So Nicole went to the house and knocked on the door but received no response. The police discovered Shanann's purse with her car keys and phone still inside it. Nicole said that Shanann would have never left her purse behind because her lupus medication was in it. Chris then goes on the news and says, quote, "When I came home and then walked in the house, nothing. Vanished. Nothing was here. My kids are my life. I mean, those smiles light up my life." Yeah, okay, bro. After the police searched Chris's home and discovered he had been having an affair, they honed in on him as their #1 suspect, and soon Chris Watts confessed to strangling Shanann and smothering his 2 daughters. He then buried Shanann in a shallow grave and put his 2 daughters in oil tanks that was on his job site. Now, that was just a brief overview, and like I said, this isn't a deep dive, but I did want to discuss a little bit about the sheer horror of what he did. I think the first thing that really got me was the disposal of their bodies. The first thing I want to note is the fact that he buried Shanann separate from his 2 daughters. Some people believe that he did this because he didn't have time to bury them all, and I personally believe that, but part of me also feels as though by disposing of them separately, he was further disrespecting Shanann in a way. Basically saying, I resent you and the children we have so much that I don't want you to be with them even in death. And then the oil tanks. The fucking oil tanks. Once again, people think that he put his 2 daughters in the tanks because he didn't have time to bury them. And I just want to say, Chris Watts is a mediocre, dumb white guy, okay? He didn't have some master plan to kill his family, and he's so narcissistic, he probably thought he could just wait for this whole thing to blow over and then go off and be with his girlfriend. I think he resented his wife and children and saw them as a burden. And like the sociopath and self-indulgent freak he is, just thought, I want them gone. And he discarded of them as quickly as possible. A detail that really disturbed me as well was the fact that to get his daughters into the oil tanks, he essentially had to stuff them into a small 8-inch opening, scraping some of their skin and hair off in the process.
What the fuck?
Yeah, what the fuck? This is all public information, and yet there are these weird people, I will call them, out there. I didn't write people in my script, but I will call them people here. There are these weird people out here that write this man in jail. I have to say, I hate hybristophiliacs, bro. Like, I cannot fathom feeling anything other than disgust and hatred for those who commit heinous crimes like this, yet somehow there's this large group of women who are foaming at the mouth to get a chance to talk to or fuck a killer. Are we serious? Are we serious? When I say fuck Chris Watts, bro, I don't mean literally. Also, he's gaining all this weight back he lost in prison. Guess you don't get to exercise much when you spend 23 hours a day in a cell.
Why are family annihilators almost always men?
That's a great question, especially since Chris Watts is one of those weak, self-entitled men. For Chris Watts, he went from being 245 pounds to around 185 pounds. And like a lot of men, when they get fit and lose weight, they suddenly think they're the hottest, most important person in the world. And instead of addressing the underlying insecurity, they hit the gym, lose the weight, and then go out to seek things externally that will validate them in their new body whilst keeping that same insecure mindset that they had when they were fat. Chris Watts lost weight and suddenly thought, I'm too good for this life. I spent 8 years building. I'm too good for Shanann, Bella, Celeste, and Nico, my unborn son. He started having an affair, and only after 2 months of meeting this woman, he decided he was too good for a divorce. He didn't want to deal with an ex-wife and kids, and like the stupid, narcissistic shit that he is, he killed them all in the most gruesome way possible. And then, because he's so fucking stupid and had no plan of how to actually get away with it, he was very quickly caught and arrested.
Trial?
There was no proper trial because, like the coward he is, he made a deal to plead guilty to avoid being put to death.
Seriously?
Don't sound so surprised. Of course someone so full of themselves wouldn't want their own death to be out of their control. But fuck your wife and kids, right?
I fucking hate Chris Watts.
I told you, you'd hate him too when I told you what he did.
What do other people have to say about this guy?
Excluding the hybristophiliacs and the freaks that defend him for some reason, I saved a few of my favorite Reddit comments to read to you guys. This one comes from Careless Phone 2572. Even Shanann in her text said she didn't think he had it in him to have another woman. I always read that as not smart enough to be able to pull off an affair. I think he got skinny and hot and the affair happened and he thought he was invincible. Yeah, he's a fucking dumbass, bro. He disposed of his family at his own place of work. Shanann had lupus and her medication was left in the house. Shanann had told her friends that there were problems in the marriage. He took a polygraph test and failed miserably, knowing he was going to fail. He's fucking stupid, bro. This next comment comes from Snoo Cheesecakes 2723. These fucking names, bro. I think money was a part of it, but more so, he didn't want to be the bad guy. After reading what she blasted on social media about Ice Cream Gate,
I didn't learn here. So Ice Cream Gate, I forgot to mention, is basically refers to an incident that took place where Chris's mom tried to give Celeste vanilla ice cream, and Shanann had freaked out about it because Celeste is allergic to nuts, and she thought that the ice cream maybe potentially had, nuts in it, and it just caused like a really big blowout argument, and it was like a whole thing.
I think he would be aware his reputation with everyone would be ruined forever if he asked for a divorce due to cheating. Plus, narcissists don't like to be the bad guy. I think sociopaths have the ability to just rip the mask off when they're done playing the role. Chris Watts was Mr. Dad and the best thing that ever happened to Shanann until he wasn't. When he wanted to be Nikki's lover and have that life, he was able to discard his wife and children like a dirty shirt. He was able to fake caring about them, and there's no way you smother your kid and push them into an oil hatch, plan to and carry it out without being completely devoid of human feelings like love and empathy. I think he faked all that because that was his role. He was an empty shell. That's the thing people find hard to understand. It's hard to understand how someone could kill their whole family so brutally for a relationship they only had for 2 months. That's the thing though. Sociopaths/psychopaths don't think like you or me. They are completely unable to feel emotions like empathy or compassion. Doesn't mean they all want to commit murder or can't think logically about their actions, but Chris wanted his family gone, and so he got rid of them. Last comment I have here from Bada Bing Bada Boom. He is such a moron. Wasn't he paying any attention to her massive online presence? Hell, he was a prop in some of them. Duh. How did he not even fathom in his tiny little pea brain that she was going to be missed by somebody? She was internet famous to a whole lot of followers. They would notice if she didn't post her usual stuff like she did. Nicole Atkinson was the hero. She knew Shanann was going to the obstetrician, so for her to not show and tell no one was out of character. The man invented stupid. No notes. This is gold. Anyway, I fucking hate Chris Watts. He killed his wife and kids for a woman he'd known for 2 months. I hope he rots in that 6x8 cell he's in, and I hope the 23 hours a day he stares at the wall and thinks about what he did and suffers from the guilt of it. Wishful thinking. Yeah, all this to say, Chris Watts is a mediocre, dumb, resentful man that deserves to suffer for what he's done. I truly hope he lives a long life in that dim, isolated cell, and I hope he agonizes over his actions. I fucking hate Chris Watts.